Greetings. What's going on, people? This is Queen Aishah, and thank you so much for joining me for another dope episode of I Know Dope People. And we have an awesome show planned today. We have our guest, Councilwoman Sharon B. Lewis, District 1, Galveston, Texas. We have brother, Assalamu alaikum, I forgot to greet him, Khalil Shabazz of JJ Shabazz Foundation out of Galveston, and author Anthony P. Griffin, who has a book coming out talking about the slaves coming to Galveston, Texas. The celebration, the federal holiday came into effect last year, 2022. This is our second year celebrating. So Monday, if you feel it in your spirit to take off work, if you have to work, do it for your ancestors, do it for your ancestors. Go ahead and get sick right now, but make sure you're participating and celebrating. And before you do so, we're going to give you a lot of information that you may not have known. Also, put your comment in the chat if you have information you want to share or questions you want to ask. So thank you in advance to our guests. Please bring on Councilwoman Sharon B. Lewis, Khalil, and author Anthony P. Griffin. Thank you. Hello, Councilwoman. How are you? Brother Khalil, assalamu alaikum. I forgot to greet you earlier. My apologies. And author Anthony P. Griffin, who is joining us from Los Angeles, California. We may have some other guests joining us as well. Thank you for your yes. How are you all doing today?
Doing good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're going to get started with Brother Khalil because you're like overseeing a lot of different things. Tell us about how the JJ Shabazz Foundation ties into the Juneteenth celebrations.
Well, the JJ Shabazz Foundation was actually founded by me, which is a continuing legacy of my late father, who was an advocate and for Juneteenth and a pioneer, and for Juneteenth and the parade, and also for the Kids Fest that we have, and we focus on feeding kids, having fun, free food, and educating the masses, the younger generation, about Juneteenth and how we can make it better and making it more conscious, aware for our community out here in Galveston, Texas.
Awesome. So tell us about Juneteenth. So the holiday, the federal holiday, took effect last year. It's like in the middle of the week, and I think people just punched out. They was like, "I'm out, deuces for my ancestors."
Right.
So do you know how long? Like, when did they start working on getting it as a federal holiday? Like, how long did that process take?
I'm not sure. That'll probably be a great question for Mr. Griffin.
Okay, that's right, because Mr. Griffin has the book coming out about the slaves. And Mr. Griffin, thank you so much for joining us. And tell us about your book that you have coming out, and about if you know about how long it took to get this federal holiday in effect.
The book is called The Water Cries, and it's about searching for the slave auction houses in Galveston. Galveston has always don't live with the myth that slaves wasn't part of the economy. And what I discovered was Galveston wasn't. It was the slaves ran the economy.
I believe that.
From 1840 to 1860. There were 86,000 slave manifests that ran from Galveston to New Orleans, the largest slave port in this part of the world, which contemplates millions of souls being shipped from Galveston, Texas, to the port of New Orleans. And in fact, Galveston also supplied the slaves from Matagorda County, which is on the coast, all the way up to Waco, Texas, 300 miles up into the interior, and all the plantations that ran from that 300 miles, which the Galveston barons were owners of those plantations, over to East Texas. So it was a large slave port, and the whole Strand district, which the myth that we live by, in our city is that we were cotton was king. Well, I think what I discovered was slaves were king, and their wealth was based on slavery. And so while slavery was being banned, the South Atlantic slave trade was being banned on the East Coast. Uh, the colonializers were moving toward Texas, and Texas or Mexico at the time, and they were bringing with them the slave trade from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all of those states. And as slaves were being banned in that part of the world, they were bringing them to Galveston. And that process of Juneteenth being recognized as a holiday, roughly about 10 years. And it was finally recognized as a holiday last year. And I think that the reason we recognize it as a holiday is, remember what happened is it took 2 years before it came. It was 2 years before we discovered that we were free. And my great grandparents were slaves, and they were alive when I was living. And I discovered in my research that they were not free until 13 and 15. So even after the emancipation took place, 13 years later and 15 years later, they invoked laws in the state of Texas that kept us enslaved. And so it's something that we have to recognize, that it wasn't just in Atlanta, it just wasn't just in Georgia, wasn't just in Mississippi, it was in New York. It infected this whole infrastructure of this country. It was in California. As we moved to different parts of the world to build this new world, our backs were used and our brains were used, and the wealth that was generated from slavery was all, as we're learning, was all over the country. And it was not happenstance that it took 2 years for us to discover it. It was intentional, and Texas did not want us free.
Yes. And thank you so much, Councilwoman, for joining us. So how did the slaves find out? Because we know it took them 2 years after the East Coast and the rest of the country. How did they find out that they were finally free?
Well, the story goes that several troops were already here in Galveston, several Black troops. And then Granger came through with what they call an Order Number 3 that supposedly announced in certain areas of the city. But one of the prominent areas is the Afro-American Methodist Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church. The Reedy Chapel, which was a place where the slaves would gather. And that was one of the first places where the news, had traveled to, because, you got to make sure your people get that information. So we have a couple of places here in town where it says, it was verbally announced. But that information was brought to us by troops, and it is said that it was Granger who gave that announcement that the slaves, the Emancipation Proclamation existed, and that slaves were free. So they took that, some left, and then, some couldn't leave. I mean, if you've been a slave for your life, then where are you going? What are you going to do? So we have marked some points in the city where they said that Emancipation Proclamation was read. Okay.
And that's a great question. Like, if you've been a slave all your life, no matter what your age, like, what do you do? Do you all anyone have any stories that they've heard of how people survived, and then also survive as far as providing for themselves and their family, and also their life? Because I'm sure when they say you're no longer a slave, the slave master's not ready to let go, right?
Right.
So does anyone have any stories? And Mr. Griffin, in your research, do you have any stories to share?
When Granger came onto the island, the mayor of Galveston contacted Granger, and they tried to get them to change the order, and they did. They changed the order where it reads that we were to stay in place, and there was a move afoot by Galvestonians, because Galveston was the largest city, the richest city, where they went to the legislature just before emancipation and just before the Civil War, trying to keep us enslaved. And one of the things I researched was, what did we do after emancipation? And was shocking. I think it shocked everyone. Reconstruction government came in. We were appointed to 2 seats on city council. They tried to prevent those city council members from taking their seats, and those black men said, "Oh no, we're taking our seat." They had to appoint. We received a couple of seats as the county clerk. There was, I remember off the top of my head, there was a judge also appointed. And then after the turn of the century, there were more African American lawyers, for example, in Galveston, Texas, than there were when I was practicing law. And I practiced law from 1978 to 2014. There were more black lawyers. There was a lawyer who came down from Boston, went to Boston University. He was the first African American lawyer that argued before the Supreme Court and won a case. He represented Booker T. Washington, and he also represented Marcus Garvey. The case he went before the Supreme Court came out of Alabama. So we were showing off. And black doctors came to Galveston. They formed their organization and met in Galveston for 15, 20 years. Because we couldn't, they went to Meharry and other schools that were formed after the Civil War. And these men, pharmacists, there were black businesses in the 1900s. There were more black businesses that existed in Galveston, Texas than it existed today.
Wow.
You couldn't count. You can't count 10 black businesses. 10, and I'm not exaggerating. 10, 15, 20 max. If we get to 20, you're lucky. There were more black businesses at the turn of the century than there are today. And then around the 1915s to 1920, the reign of violence took place all throughout Tulsa, Elaine, Arkansas, Houston, Texas. And we know that history where the violence took place. And yes, it was in Galveston, Texas, where we were being lynched and towns were being burned. 367 men were slaughtered in Elaine, Arkansas, because they were complaining about the conditions. So Galveston, the black folks in Galveston showed out, and they invoked martial law in the city. Let me get the year right. Black longshoremen and white longshoremen protested about the wages. And the most significant thing about that history was blacks and whites workers fought together for an increase of wages. And Texas was so concerned they invoked martial law in Galveston for 1915, somewhere in there. They invoked martial law for 6 months. They took over the city. They took over city council. They took over the police department because they did not like black folks showing out, that we thought we were equal. And they sent an FBI agent down, and he wrote in his report that we were a dangerous people because I forget the words he used. We were impudent. He deemed it to be negative, that we were an impudent people and dangerous because we thought we were equal to them. So I think that's something Galvestonians should celebrate. That our history is such a nature, and the town was so different that people came from all over the country to seek their wealth in the city of Galveston because it was a rich city, and it was rich. I will contend off the backs of slaves,
of us,
and that's how they made their money.
Wow. So Khalil, tell us, what are some of the things, thank you, Mr. Griffin, what are some of the things that you all educate the youth on in regards to Juneteenth and just the history of Galveston, because there's so much history there?
Basically, like Mr. Griffin was saying, just you'll be surprised how many people just want to party for Juneteenth just because that it gives them the reason to party. But as far as the education is the day that it happened, what does emancipation actually mean? But what does it mean to be free? Things of those natures. And we try to, and like I told you earlier, we try to grab them as they're young. That way, by the time they get older, they can be able to represent and move forward the culture that we're trying to push as of today.
And just to have to know your history is so powerful. Because especially when you start off young, because you move different.
Exactly.
You think different. Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's very important and powerful. And you have some celebrations and stuff going on. We're going to talk about later that the children are participating in.
Yes, ma'am.
And Councilwoman Lewis, so tell us about the Emancipation Bike Ride. That is this an annual bike ride, or did you just do it? Did you all just do it the one time from Galveston to Houston, and explain what it is about?
It was actually the fourth annual Ellis Congress had already provided to the state that actually declared it as the
Councilwoman, can you hear me? You're breaking up. Can you hear me? Your line is going in and out.
I can fix it.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll show the video. We'll show the video and then come back to you.
Okay.
Good time. You can show the video of the trail going from, this is the Emancipation Trail for Juneteenth, and they bike ride from Galveston, Texas to Houston, Texas, retracing the route that the former enslaved people took. Now this is about a 50-mile distance from Galveston to Houston, and in today's time driving, it takes about 1 hour and 12 minutes. So Lord have mercy, to walk it on those, you don't even call them roads. What were they back then? To walk, and just knowing that they don't have the shoes and everything that we have now. So they do the trail, and this is a news clip about their journey. Just a moment. We are bringing it up.
What does strength mean to you? Some say it's how fast you run a mile, but there are other ways to define strength. What matters is that we figure it out together. Fitness.
In anticipation of the upcoming Juneteenth holiday, Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis led cyclists from Galveston to Houston today to mirror the journey of formerly enslaved people. It's the fourth year for the 51-mile trip that follows the path of the proposed Emancipation National Historic Trail that's being studied by the National Park Service. If certified, the trail would feature historic sites along the way that played a part of the emancipation story. About 36 cyclists made the journey today, ending at Emancipation Park in Third Ward.
People who had been enslaved had to have a pass to travel. They didn't have a police escort, which we did, but each time we do it, it's a time to reflect on how far we have come in Texas and how much farther we still have to go.
The Juneteenth holiday is June 19th. It commemorates the day in 1865 that formerly enslaved people in Galveston learned of their freedom.
Thank you. That is so powerful, just to think about how far we've come, and that route. Like when we look in the 60s of the civil rights, and I always say how they protest and they were sharp. We real comfortable and casual. It's hard to get us to protest at certain times. So it does just really show that we've come a long way, and we come from a great, mighty people. And Councilwoman Lewis, are you with us?
I think I am.
I hear you. Thank you.
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
I don't know. It must be G-Town. It must be Galveston.
Yes.
But the experience, this was my second year. Last year, I did not go the full trail. But this time I did the 52 miles and went all the way.
Oh, wow.
And the last mile in, I hit a pole. So I got a couple of bruises.
Oh, wow.
I got a couple of bruises, but I tell you, it's nothing compared to what the slaves went through.
Right. That's
So
what I was about
it
to
is
say. Right. Mhm.
yeah, it is a reminder for me. And it was just an amazing trip. And we stopped at the Emancipation Park in Houston, which is land that free slaves bought, that they purchased. Yeah. And so it was just an honor to be able to participate.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So this is an annual bike ride?
Yes. So you may
Okay.
come next year.
And I have a bike, and I didn't even put it out on that road yet this year. So
Oh, well.
I have to I have to participate in the celebration of Galveston. I told my sister like last year, the year before, I said last year, I was like, I have to participate. I want to see what it's like to be there in that city and that whole experience. I think that is just would be a beautiful thing.
Yes, it would be, and to be that close to the port, and just to imagine. I know Mr. Griffin has a book. My son loves history as well, and he wrote this down. Mr. Griffin calls his the cries, I think, of the water, but his says the wound of the waters. Let them speak to you when you look out at the ocean, listening to the waves. And it's just so powerful to be here where that actually existed, that the port where they brought in slaves here and sold them. And we all know what is it, Yale University, and one of them that have donated a lot of money. Some universities are realizing that, hey, that did happen. So the slaves, we're here because slaves.
That's right.
There, yeah. And we have a few like in the Ashton Villa, which is where we still read the Emancipation there, but there's a fireplace there that a slave built by the name of Alex. And there's I remember years ago, before they put the Children's Museum in the bottom of one of the mansions here, I remember seeing shackles there in that lower basement area. So of course, all of that, most of that has been removed, but it was here, and we need to embrace it and tell the stories and not wash away the memories of that.
Yes, ma'am. Now going back to the bike trail, it's 51 miles. How long did it take?
We started that morning, and we took several. That's one of the ladies who's supposed to be on there. Okay. We started at
Councilwoman Lewis is an auntie. I know she cook good in her house because she's gonna answer her phone.
I'm just solid. But we started at 8. Actually left Galveston at about 8:15 a.m. We're supposed to, so he's considering starting it at 6:30 next year. Okay. My thighs received lots of sunburn because my shorts were not long enough. But it took us. We got into the park at about 1:30, but we made several stops along the way.
It wouldn't be right if we don't stop.
Right. And we also stopped at one place that's very historical, where we know the slaves stopped at in Texas City. And the lady is 97. Khalil, you probably know the bell.
Yes, ma'am.
And she was sitting there. Last year she talked to us, but this year, yeah. So, and there's actually a one piece. I think it's a kitchen item that came out of their kitchen that exists in the Smithsonian Institute right now today. So we know the slaves took the path that we took, and the state hopefully will establish that as the Emancipation Trail. So it took us. We got there a little bit about 1:30, which wasn't bad.
Did y'all ride back, or y'all took the bus back?
No. Our cars brought us back. What they do is they bring over the electric bikes to the island, but you pre-register for it. So they have a trailer with bikes in it. So, but at any point, if you want to stop and get off your bike, you can do that. They don't make you go the path. Yeah, that's up to you. We had a guy who was younger than I. His muscles started hurting, so he had to park that bike and get in the van.
So and then you
Okay.
have police escort all the way. So
Mhm.
it was a great experience. It was a great experience.
Yes, and just a reflection, I can only think of the things that you all get to reflect on and think about our ancestors and their struggles and troubles, and without a police escort, and just their nerves, their stress level, even though they're free, not knowing what can happen next, right? That's
Right.
amazing and powerful.
And without a road. That's always amazing to me, that there were trees, there was forest there.
Yes.
That's why I know that we are intelligent people, because we know that they had to travel through forests, through places that they didn't, were not familiar with.
Yes.
You've been a slave here in this town, and now you got to go somewhere else.
Yes.
So
that is very powerful. Now I see that someone named Jade is on. Is that one of the women that were coming on from
Jackson?
the business?
Is it Jackson or Jade?
I just see Jade.
She might be. She must be under another name, I guess.
Okay, so I can bring her on. The screen is black, but we're gonna bring Jade. Open your camera for us, please. And while we're getting, so Jade went off. I'm not sure who that was, but maybe she has to come back on. But we're gonna, Khalil, you can speak about the events that's going on. I'm gonna put the flyers up for the events that's happening. We have a Juneteenth parade and picnic.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Tell us about this.
Well, as I was stating at the beginning when we first got on, the parade starts at City Hall and goes through an historical district in Galveston and ends at Wright County Park.
Okay.
And at the end of Wright County Park is where we will have the Kids Fest.
Mm-hmm.
Have bouncy houses, water, free snow cone, free food, and we do prizes and games, and we also have people participate in dance-offs. And
I should have been there. I'd have been. Yes, with my good shoes. I love to dance. Me and Katanya. We were just on the Tom Jordan Proof dancing everywhere.
We look forward to having you one year.
Yes, I look forward to being there. Seriously.
And then Sunday, which is Father's Day, is our first year that the foundation is having a scholarship ball, to where we will be giving 3 scholarships out to 3 high school seniors going to college this fall.
Awesome.
It's an evening of fine dining. We'll have a panel board where Councilwoman Miss Sharon Lewis will be speaking at, and basically it will be a platform to educate the guests about Juneteenth, kind of like how you had today on the show.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't have that history that we need to be able to even advocate for Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why guys like Mr. Griffin and Mrs. Lewis is very, very, very valuable to our community, and very much so pillars of our community, because they have that knowledge and education that we need, and we to be able, like I say, to be advocates up for Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be the first year we'll have the scholarship ball, and we're just looking,
That's
like
awesome.
I say, to give back, man, and be an advocate of common good, and push forward for our people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's very, very important. Very important. So the events will be starting on tomorrow. You have an event going on, right, Congresswoman? Y'all have a event or something going on tomorrow?
Tomorrow we have a youth panel that's going on, and then tomorrow night is the banquet. It's a banquet at the Ashton Villa. So that is tomorrow. And then Friday will be an unveiling. We are getting a sign where when you come into Galveston, it will say, "Welcome to Galveston, birthplace of Juneteenth." And we will unveil that sign Friday. That's been kind of long coming. Yeah. Actually, last year we had some visitors who were here, and they said, "Why don't you have a sign here about Juneteenth?" So I've got to compliment our mayor on that. We talked about it, and he went to work on it. So
awesome.
And made it happen. So that's Friday, with the gospel concert. And then Saturday is our parade and festival and comedy show. And
Marilyn McCoo and Billy.
Okay. Not
be
Marilyn McCoo. That's back in the day. Not Marilyn, not Auntie Marilyn McCoo. Whoa, that's back in the day.
They're going to be here Saturday night with the, with the concert. So there are lots of things, and then we get to the Sunday church, and then the Freedom Ball, and a sneaker ball as well. And then Monday is the reading of the Emancipation, the reenactment. They actually have people dressed as soldiers, and they do a reenactment. And then that afternoon we have Dominique Hammonds and a comedian coming in for that, and then it's the walk from the church to the courthouse. So lots of things.
So for those of us who are not do not know what the Emancipation Proclamation is and why that is so important, can anyone explain what that is? What the Emancipation Proclamation is and how this made the difference for the slaves in Galveston being free, even though they found out 2 years later?
Well, it was what AG, you want to speak on that?
Well, Lincoln the Emancipation Proclamation freeing the slaves 2 years before. And the story was it did not reach Galveston until 2 years later, on June 19th, 1865. And the history is that Lincoln the North hadn't won the war totally, and he did it as a tactical reason to issue the emancipation early. The other part of that history, it did not reach Galveston until 2 years later.
Okay. So so what's the average day in Galveston? Like, what is the most important thing, popular thing, the money maker in Galveston in today?
It's become a tourist town. Galveston is a tourist attraction, and it has one of the largest cruise terminals in the country. Millions of people come through the city on a yearly basis to go to the beach, to see historic homes and historic structures, and also for cruises. And hopefully Juneteenth will be one of those major events.
Right, and we have a lot of first in Galveston as well. And Galveston, if you wanted to attend high school as an Afro-American or Black, you had to come to Galveston. It was the only place in Texas where you could attend high school.
Wow.
So yeah, it's the first Black high school in the state of Texas here in Galveston. It's Central High School. And we still have one of the buildings that's set up as a cultural center, which has some historical information regarding the school. And the west side of the building still has the words Rosenberg Library, colored branch. Because even though there was a library here, you couldn't go there. They put it at the Black high school. So those words are still there. And that building houses a lot of community events. The board there is very active. Actually, Doug Matthews was our first Black city manager, and he's president of that board. And he's actually was a very strong catalyst in pushing Juneteenth as a holiday in the state of Texas. So he was, years ago. And then he also pushed for it as a national day with I remember several years back, I want to say at least 10 years, he was with Senator Corn in pushing for Juneteenth as a national holiday as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So because when I went to go look up some information, they're so great. I think it's Carlos Wallace is who I connected with. I was like, I have to find someone to speak to in Galveston. So I did some research and I just joined mailing lists. And he sent out something about, I just joined the mailing. I said, I have to find someone. I was going to go online, all of that. So he was promoting one of the events. And I replied to the email and I said, can you please put me in contact with someone? And automatically he said, Congresswoman Sharon B. Lewis, tell her I sent you.
Yes.
He said, contact the councilwoman.
He's a great.
So I appreciate that. Yes.
Yeah.
That was
his
awesome,
wife
awesome.
is actually our comedian on Monday, and everybody actually kept asking, "Is she coming back? Is she coming back?"
That's awesome.
Yes. Everybody just loved her.
Very good. I went to his website.
Yes.
Yeah, I did go to his website and I saw his wife there. I didn't know she was a comedian though.
Yes, I think she was I want to say a journalist out of New York, out of Brooklyn or something.
Okay.
Yeah, and turned comedian. So, but she's awesome. She's awesome.
We may have crossed paths. So is there anything that you would want to share with our audience? So with the JJ, someone type, I hear some typing and coughing in the background, if you can mute out. So the JJShabazFoundation.org. Khalil, do you all look for donations? What would you like to share about the organization? How can the audience support you?
Oh yes, ma'am. We accept donations. As you know, it's a website that I connected to you maybe at the beginning of this. We're active throughout all this year, man. We do turkey drives, we do back to school drives, when we give out free haircuts and backpacks for students that's in need in the community. So we're always looking for help to help others. You know what I'm saying? But as far as us, we don't look for excuses. We just get out and get it done, man. If it comes out of our pocket, it comes out of our pocket. If we receive help, we receive help. We thank God for that. But it's a mission to be done. And like my dad used to always say, I'm a soldier for the cause. So but yeah, man, we're always looking to connect with great people such as yourself. And I appreciate you for having me on today.
Thank you so much. I have to say, when I was like, I was born Muslim. So
yeah, I am.
Of course, so when I called my dad, he's going to be so proud. And then I did read about your father, and my condolences to you and your family, and noble work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Sharon B. Lewis, we family. Because we connected on the phone. I said, I love her spirit. I told my sister today, I said, she part of Mommy Village. She part of my mother, that whole vibe. I said, she that type of spirit.
Yep.
Yes. So thank you. And Arthur P. Griffin, thank you. We look forward. So is the book out? When does The Water Cries come out?
It doesn't come out until the first of the year 2024.
Awesome.
This coming year. So it'll be somewhere in February, March of next year.
Thank you. I'm sure he's in Los Angeles getting that paper right for his book.
You're funny.
I know I'm going to need you to correct that, and I'm going to need you to correct that just for my peoples.
No problem.
Thank you so much for you all joining us. This has been very informative. Councilwoman Lewis, do you have any final words you want to leave us with? You're muted. You're muted. Let me
And I'm so glad.
There you go. Go ahead. I can hear you. We can hear you.
I'm so glad that you had an opportunity. You can't?
Yes, we hear you. Yes.
Hello.
You're good.
Oh, okay. I'm so glad that you did. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad that you did read up on Khalil's father to see. And those are the kind of people we take a look back at. We have people like Annie Mae Charles, one of our first Black police officers, things like that we still build on in our community. We try and never forget those who came before us, because we would not be here had those people had not tread the path. We would not be here, none of us. So we want to always keep in mind those who came before us. And I'd like to invite you to Galveston Island at each time,
Yes.
any time that you choose to come, not just for Juneteenth. We're
right. Oh, did we lose her? Councilwoman dropped off. I'm not sure what happened. She dropped off. Well, thank you so much. So first of all, I didn't even realize that Galveston was an island, but it does make sense because it's on. No, I didn't even know. So because y'all talking, I was like, oh, it's an island. Yeah. I didn't even think, but I knew ships came in there because I know that the Tom Joyner cruise has left from there before.
Right.
I didn't realize that. I knew it was ocean because that's where we came in, right?
Right.
So, but I didn't realize that it was an island, and I can only imagine now because there's so much tourism that it's looking a lot different than what it was in 1865.
Correct.
And that land must be very expensive to purchase now.
It's driven up 3-4 times the value of it in the last 4 or 5 years.
I believe it because they done ran us out and make the taxes high and all of that.
It's happening every day.
Yes. So we thank you all so very much for coming on with us. My show, I Know Dope People. I am honored that you all galvanized so quickly to come together. You ready,
Yes,
Councilwoman?
I will not use the city iPad anymore for this.
I'm not doing this.
I will let them know this does not work.
Well, we appreciate you coming back in. But yes, so you are inviting me to Galveston for catfish and a bike ride. Continue.
We also have tried to add during Juneteenth a brown bag series every month. A speaker, someone who would come in each month and speak to us. But yes, you have open doors here. All of us will welcome you with open arms anytime you're ready to come here. So
okay. Well, I know I'll be in Houston. I was telling you I'll be in Houston for a cancer benefit that a good friend of mine does in Humble, Texas. So we will see if we can set something up while I'm already on that side in that hot sun.
Oh my God. It is hot. Now, what month are you coming?
October. I don't know the date yet, but it's October Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so I'll be there supporting her event, hosting it as I do. Yeah. I've done for her in the past and did it this past year as well.
Okay.
You won't get none of that real Texas heat coming in October, then.
No.
That's good. That's good. My inner thighs are gonna preach it. No, Houston, Texas, just Texas overall. It is like hot. Like I've been to Mali, West Africa. It's like that type of like, oh my gosh, fire. So I know, well, the heat, I think it was hot when our slaves was coming through, but the global warming and all that is a little different. And they had other things, I think, in their favor as far as the weather is concerned. But yes, thank you all so very much. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us here. And okay, so this lives on YouTube. So trust me, people will watch it again and we will re-air it. Not even for Juneteenth. Just let me go ahead and drop some knowledge so y'all can watch it again. And I will share the link with each of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And enjoy the celebration this weekend. I will be there in spirit.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Peace and power.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. I want her to be a congresswoman so bad. Councilwoman Sharon B. Lewis, Khalil Shabazz, and author Anthony B. Griffin. I appreciate your time. Please take the time to share this information with your family and also do your additional research on the Juneteenth celebration, June 19th, 1865. And here's the thing, it wasn't that many years ago. 158 years is not that long ago. My grandmother lived to be 102. So that lets you know we are not far removed from it. And we can do our history and we can grow from it and get all the jewels and the benefits. My name is Queen Aishah, Peace and Power. Happy Juneteenth!